As you can see on my screen, I have just concluded my first Alliance Invictus KVK, and along with that, I've learned a whole lot of new things. This is a new, unique format that Lilith released about 2 months ago, and I don't believe there's that much knowledge surrounding the whole format itself, so that's what this video is going to be about. It's going to be everything that you need to know about Alliance Invictus. We're going to go over the map, we're going to go over different KVK specialties and unique aspects to the KVK itself, some KVK timings, and some tips and tricks that you will need to know in order to win this KVK. Let's hop into it. First thing that we're going to go over is the map. So this is what our map looked like when we entered KVK. You can see the total power, the camps, etc., etc. Now, it is not limited to 2 kingdoms per camp. There are times where you're going to have up to 3 or 4 kingdoms in one camp. For example, the 1960 and the 1093 KVK right now, I think there are up to 5 kingdoms in one camp. It can get pretty crazy, but this is not predetermined allies. These are allies determined by Lilith. So that being said, let's see this in a practical sense, and we're going to hop back in game here, and you can actually see that we were the fire camp in the top left. And where this gets interesting is that the allies and enemies are kind of predetermined. The game mode wants you to operate in a pattern of checkered allies and enemies. So you want a ally or yourself here, you want an enemy here, you want an ally here, you want an enemy here, and you want an ally here, and you want an enemy here. The reason that you want that to happen is every single zone will be contested in this KVK format. Every single altar will be contested in this KVK format. If you don't do it that way, then the KVK kind of becomes really imbalanced as far as Diplo goes, because some people aren't going to get fights in zones. You're going to have other people who are upset. So unless it's like a huge, Imperium KVK where you've got one obvious, clearly strongest kingdom or camp, then you really want to format your KVK to be as checkered allied and enemies as possible. Now, where it gets even more interesting is you're going to see the zone 7s. Everything up to zone 7 is pretty standard. You've got, you fight the camp right next to you. But when you go to zone 7, at least for the fire and the earth camp on top, you'll see that there is only fire and earth, and the passes are very close to each other. So you end up fighting the 2 people up top, and then the bottom zone 7 is a 2v2. So this is a much, much, much larger zone, and there are 4 different passes. So basically, your allies and enemies down here are going to fight each other for entrance to Kingsland. Now, what are some of the things that are unique to Alliance Invictus? Well, the very first thing and the most obvious thing is the Curios. So this looks like an artifact, and I want to stress that they are not the same thing. In KVK modes like Warriors Unbound, I believe, like Storm of Stratagems, you can get an artifact that makes one commander change troop types. This is not what this does. This only changes the troops. For example, if I were to run a Gorgo Attila garrison in this KVK format, Attila would still be a cav commander and they would not work well together. I want to stress that because in our KVK, this KVK, we still had our enemies actually run the wrong garrison types because they misread this. What this actually does is this makes it so that your troops change. So I could essentially have this on my secondary commander, bring cavs out from my city, but when I actually reinforce the garrison or they're on the map, they would be infantry. As soon as I have Constantine as my secondary, that is what happens. Now, I generally don't reinforce from my main just because I reinforce from my farms, and so instead I have this planted on my Constantine because I ran the Gorgo Constantine garrison a whole lot this KVK, and even if this is equipped to your secondary commander, it still gives that benefit of 3.5% attack. So for most mains, I will say that this won't really swap around much. Another thing that you could use this for is maybe if you run out of infantry while you are playing KVK, right? You've reinforced a lot, but you have like T5 or T4 siege in your city. Well, you can actually convert that siege into a usable troop type and bring that out from your city. So again, this is not going to turn like Belisarius Prime into an imp commander, but it will let you kind of never run out of one troop type, which is honestly really, really helpful throughout the KVK. The next big part of this KVK and the unique thing about it is the flagging, or the flags in general. You can actually create 2 different types of flags, or I guess 3 if you include the normal standard Crusader flag. So naturally, you can build flags, 2000 reinforcements, we all know this. What's special is that you can upgrade them into Alliance Outposts, and you can upgrade them into shielded flags. And now you can see here a lot of information. I'm going to summarize this very quickly. You can create a shielded flag, and you can only create 10 per alliance. You need 40 flags in order to actually create a shield, so they've got to be functional shells at the very least. But basically, you can prep for 1 hour. They take 1 hour to occur once they've already been built. If it burns in that time frame, then the shielded flag will no longer happen. It'll cancel. The shield lasts for 4 hours, and once it's over, it can't be reshielded for 8 hours. What this also means is that you can't attack out from it, so it is truly a defensive position and a defensive maneuver. Again, you can only make 10 per season, but this is per alliance. So kingdoms with a whole lot of shells, well, this is actually going to go really, really well for you because you can actually have a ton of these shielded flags. Now, we still have 10 left because we kind of never had to use them. We were on offense this whole KVK, but a really good spot to use them is, and when we use them specifically in this KVK, is on our shell. We had pushed our enemies out of Kingsland and kind of out of this Zone 7, and they were pushing us back while we were fighting in Kingsland. So we just set up a bunch of those shielded flags so that they couldn't push through that wall, and then we stalled them for another 4 hours, right? Another good use for them is obviously there's really strategic pinch points in KVK or in your Kingsland, right? When you're going to downtime, things of that nature, that's when you should really be using the flags the most. I would not recommend using them in your first Zone 5 fight because you really want to make sure that you're using them in the most critical times, and those most critical times include your Zone 7 to make sure you have access into Kingsland, and then obviously Kingsland because it is Kingsland. Okay, and next up we have one of the most confusing parts of the KVK, and this is actually the Alliance Outpost system. And you might ask, why is it confusing? Well, there are so many different things that you can do with this that you just generally don't use it. It's kind of funny. This really isn't used as like something that's mandatory in the KVK. In fact, if you have players online 24/7, you don't really need this. We did not use this once in any way during our KVK. Now, you know, we don't really have a large downtime, and we always have rally and garrison leaders on. So I would say that the main use that you have of the Alliance Outpost is actually to store your rally leaders in this flag so that you can launch rallies when they're offline. And how do you do that? Well, first things first, you go in here, it takes 30 minutes to upgrade to an outpost. The same rules apply to the shield. If it gets burned while it's upgrading, it will not upgrade. But you go into this reinforce here, and you see the combat troops, and you have the lone troops. So the combat troops act as any other flag, right? You can set the troop types, it doesn't really matter. The combat troops act as a normal flag. The lone troops are where things get a little interesting. And now you can see idle, and you can see in rally formation, and I'm going to show you why this rally formation thing is a little bit tricky, but you can actually launch rallies from your Alliance Outpost. And so how do you do this? You go into this button right here underneath the little fire logo, and you can see that my troops are in the rally formation. So this means that I can select any flag that I'm connected to. Like, let's say that I can actually rally this flag. I'm not actually going to rally it, guys, but you can see up here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like, I have 8 marches. That's strange, but no, I can actually just use my troop to start a rally. When it's in the flag. And the great thing is I don't actually have to use my troops. So you can see that I go back over here into my flag. I can go to edit, and now anyone who has stored their troops inside of this flag, I can actually put into rally formation. And now this is the same person, so you can actually make 2 people rally leads. So if you have 2 rally leads, you can't do it. You can only do 1. But you can see that I'm the captain right now. I press confirm, and I can still actually launch this rally. Let's say the same thing, rally, but now you can see I actually have 543,000 troops, so it won't take as many people to join. Now, I don't really recommend you launching a rally completely from the Alliance Outpost. I recommend that you only launch 1 rally at a time, and the only people who are actually the captains in this rally formation are your garrison captains, and then other people can join from their cities as per normal. But in order to change this captain, so right now you see my belly prime with Joan is the captain. In order for me to change it, and this is where Lilith needs to change something because I can't actually right click and change the captain. The only way for me to change the captain is by unselecting my own march and then reselecting it. And now you can see that Weelu is the captain, which is not my march. And when I go over here to rally a flag, you can see now I'm actually rallying with the Nevsky primary, which is Weelu's march. So again, how I would best utilize this inside of KVK is actually just having all of your rally leads who go offline, who aren't online, to put a march, right? Maybe even just one troop into this flag so that when it's time for them to rally, you can actually just edit, just Weelu's march, boom, and now I can launch a rally with Weelu's, Nevsky Joan. Now, the other use for this kind of flag is you can just simply use your lone troops and pop them into the flag. So, boop. Wait, I did that wrong. I just sent it home. So if we go to lone troops, hold on. I gotta join with, there, gotta go out and then go back in because it acts as like two different flags. So I can, I believe, just press this. Yeah, and now it goes into this as a reinforcement. So it works out pretty well. It's very, very, very easy to keep a flag like the Alliance Outpost alive because you can basically just keep flooding in your lone troops into the flag and just filling the garrison as it's getting rallied. So this kind of flag is very hard to take down, and you might think, well, this flag is never going to die. But the thing is that you can only fill it with T5 troops. And the fact that you can only fill it with T5 troops means that you're not really being super efficient. Now it's like a pinch point flag, then I completely understand, use the T5 troops, kill off those troops. But generally you want to fill these kind of flags up with farms, and you're not able to do that in the Alliance Outpost. So this was Lilith's way of kind of getting around the flag or the farm filling in the flags. But either way, I think it's like pretty cool that something like this exists. And again, the only real use that I would say most kingdoms have for this is just putting your troops into the lone troops category, creating them as rally leads, and then launching them right when it is time to launch a rally and they're not online, right? It's just easy for you to use these troops all the time. And one thing that isn't actually super unique to Alliance Invictus or the support skills, you'll know this in many other KVKs like Heroic Anthem, for example. There are a random assortment of skills that you can put on your commanders. Now, what is a little unique is that these don't apply to rallying garrisons, so swarming in this KVK is very, very strong. All right, now that we've gone over all of the unique aspects to Alliance Invictus, let's go over some very large tips that I kind of wish that I knew before going into this KVK. And the first is actually the shield usage. So I covered this briefly already, so I'm not going to harp too much on it, but basically you should use absolutely no shields in Zone 5. That's critical. If you want to experiment maybe with like a sub-alliance very early on before you delete the flags, and that's fine, but just know that all your shields need to be saved for Zone 7 and for Kingsland. The next thing that is super important is actually your craftsman usage, right? So your alliance skill. Most of the people watching this video, I do imagine, know what craftsman is, but it makes you build your flags a whole lot faster. And the unique thing is that the Zone 7 actually lasts for so little time that if you use your craftsman in your main alliance, then you will not have it for Kingsland. So you must prepare accordingly. Basically, we used our craftsman in our main alliance, LB, and we did not have it for Kingsland. So what we did is we dropped an array of forts along this wall that did have craftsmen available, and then we basically used those as our land going into Kingsland. So you must prepare accordingly. I'm not saying don't pop craftsmen in this zone, but it needs to be from a different alliance than you plan on going to Kingsland with. And then lastly are the fort placements and the wall hops. Now, I can't specifically tell you what you should do down here because I did not fight down here and I don't have that experience. Generally, I will tell you that what people try to do is you want to secure your side of the pass. So you basically fort wall all up in here. And then if you're trying to be defensive, you create this diagonal position where you go down to this structure right here, which is the circle. So if you want to hold the circle, you fort wall right in front of it, and you basically go up until this middle area here. Now, if you want to be more aggressive, you can go more towards your enemy side, but again, that's up to you. What's major important is that whoever loses this zone 7 should be able to hold until entrance into Kingsland. Now you will have to share one pass, which can get a little bit frustrating, but assuming you build in correctly, it should be okay. And you can see my allies here actually fort dropped a second row of forts right on their side of the circle so that they actually couldn't get pushed out of the zone completely, and thus we were able to go into Kingsland at an advantage. So as far as what we did, the main thing is that whoever's on the left here, which in this case is fire, is actually fairly favored because of this wall hop right here. This is very, very important. And if fire can get their pass sooner, then basically they can create this wall hop where they basically can get this head start into the enemy territory. There's also another wall hop that consists right here. Actually, I think it's just sooner. I think it's right here. I can't remember entirely when we were actually in the heat of the moment, but there's a way that you can, maybe it's right here. I don't know. I'm getting a little off track, but basically this is very, very important for you to get this flag down as soon as possible and build this way. This makes it so that you have direct pressure on their line, and it is very, very strong. As far as fort positioning, it's again going to be mostly right down the middle. I would strongly suggest dropping the aggressive fort if you are the first one to get your pass, because that does stall the enemy out pretty substantially if you're able to get that built, and obviously poses a threat to the enemy pass. And this kind of leads into where do I think this KVK can improve? Well, you can tell from the pass structure and the ally structure and the kingdom structure that Kingsland will never be fair. And this is where this is kind of odd, because whoever wins this zone comes down here and has the massive advantage going into Kingsland. Because we beat Earth, we basically went into Kingsland with a 3 camp versus 2 camp scenario, and I knew that we were going to win that from the get-go. If we had a more evenly matched opponent in Earth, maybe it would have been a stall. We would have both been able to kind of pass up over into Kingsland. But basically, these passes are so close together, and you have to hold them for 2.5 days. I don't think many kingdoms are going to be able to hold a pass, at least for this distance, right? You can only drop like 1, 2, 3 forts, right? 3 forts are going to burn. You don't know if you're actually going to get entrance into Kingsland, and thus makes Kingsland very unbalanced. I think that there should be more distance between these passes. I would say maybe this level 8 pass honestly goes like closer here, and then this level 8 pass goes closer to here, just because I think while the zone 7 fights should naturally be important, I think that you want your Kingsland to be as even as possible, and it kind of takes away from some of the excitement when you're going into Kingsland and you know that it's a 3-on-2. So overall, would I play this KVK again? Yes, the answer is definitely yes. I had a whole lot of fun. The support skills with your marches is obviously something that I really like in Rise of Kingdoms. It makes you feel super powerful when you're going around on the field, and it makes it so that every choice that you make is really, really impactful before the fighting starts, right? You got to set up all your gear, you got to do all these things. It's set up your support skills. It's really fun, and I enjoy that kind of KVK. I also think that the Gorgo Attila and the Gorgo Constantine and all these KVKs where Gorgo is just really, really broken is not always too fun. I like having powerful swarms. Now, you could look on that as the opposite side as well and just be like, okay, well, how do you defend if you don't have field presence? Well, that's one downside, right? But overall, the KVK itself feels really balanced. It feels like it's got a lot of different moving parts, and that is something that I really, really enjoy. So let me know if I missed anything. I really do feel like I covered most of the things that happen in Alliance Invictus, and let me know if you're going to register in your next bot, because maybe I'll see you there one day. Anyway, guys, take care. See you guys around. Peace.